2 wins from 2, 6 points from 6. Arsenal have started the Premier League season just the way we want in terms of results, but have the performances left us wanting a little bit more? I think there's plenty of positives, but it is really fascinating. Once again, I don't know if there is a more fascinating manager in the league. Actually, that's a lie, there are some. But to follow Mikel Arteta's tactics is quite something. He found a way past Crystal Palace, and he had to be inventive, he had to think on the spot, because a completely and utterly unjust red card meant having to switch to a system that we've talked about, Graham and I, before, but we haven't seen for a little while, thanks to a spotless red card record last season. But we're going to have to talk about it and more. Graham, welcome back to Tactical Insight and AFTV. Always a pleasure to chat to you. And Arsenal have got a really crucial win at Selhurst Park. It's out of the way, we don't have to worry about it for another year.
Yeah, as you say, James, we maintained our 100% record at the start of this season with a hard-fought victory at Crystal Palace last night. In doing so, we kept up our excellent record against London clubs. That's 11 wins now in 13 London derbies, which is something that I think is nothing to be sniffed at, is it?
No,
but, you know, I think Arsenal deserved the result in this game. I thought first half we created the 2 big chances, both spurned by the lively Eddie Nketiah. And then second half, once Tomiyasu was sent off for 2 soft yellow cards in my view, we defended resiliently in a 5-3-1 shape, as you say. And in the end, I think we deserved the result.
Went away to Palace and managed 14 shots, as Palace did 2. We had 3 on target to their 2. We had 53% of the ball to their 47% possession. We had 421 passes to their 365 and an XG of 2.02 to their 0.74. Some of these stats might feel a little closer as we move along with them. Let's have a look at the attack stats, because there's context to all this. In terms of the attack stats, we had 59 final third entries to their 52. We had 47 deep touches to their 45. We had 23 zone 14 touches to their 22. Again, a lot of these feeling a lot closer than perhaps you'd expect. And a field tilt of 51% to 49%. And then we look at the defensive stats as well. 14 tackles to their 13, 5 interceptions to their 4, 18 clearances to their 19, and an 8.2 passes per defensive action to their 15.2. Before I stop and get your reaction to all those numbers, you sent me this, and I think it really paints the picture about Arsenal's dominance in the first half, and actually how much the red card swayed proceedings and how Arsenal had to do something completely different. Arsenal had 9 shots in the first half, their most in the first half of a Premier League away game without scoring since Boxing Day 2019, Mikel Arteta's first game in charge for Arsenal. Palace only managed 6 touches in the Arsenal box, the fewest since April 2014 against Man City. Arsenal were maybe struggling to really kind of pick the lock, but my word, they were all over Palace.
I think we were pressing really well in this game from the front. And I think that without I think we lacked a bit of technical quality in certain positions. Maybe you could argue left back, maybe you could argue left-sided number 8, and maybe you could argue down the middle in the striker position. But overall, I thought we were very comfortable in the game first half. We controlled the game, as we're going to talk about. It became a game where we were building up in our 3-5-2 shape against their 4-4-2 off the ball formation. I think this was a definite change this week, James, away from the formation that he used against Nottingham Forest last week, where we built up in that 3-4-3 diamond, or the 3-1-3-3. I thought Partey was still inverting from the right, next to right, or at times was a single pivot, but it's more a 3-2-5 shape. Overall, I thought that Palace sat off us. I think they paid us respect. They obviously are missing key players. We have to not forget that. Lise wasn't fit. They just lost Zaha. But there still was a pretty strong Crystal Palace team. Lamar came into midfield next to Decore, and that was quite a physical midfield. But overall, I thought Arsenal controlled the play in the first half. It was a typical London derby. There wasn't a lot of chances in the game, but I thought what we had in that first half, I think we had the best of it.
I completely agree. Let's illustrate what you were talking about on the tactical pad, which we have here. We've got the 2 11s. They went with Decore, Lerma at the base, Eze in the 10. Schlupp and Ayew, not the kind of wing partnership that we've seen of Elise and Zaha over the years. However, 2 very, very good players. And I felt they kind of, especially Ayew, did cause Tomiyasu problems. I thought Partey did fairly well defensively in his defence. Let's have a little look at how it's shaped up, because we've got that 4-3-3. Tomiyasu's coming for Timber, as you've mentioned, and then we have that shape build the way you mentioned, where Partey's inverting. But break it down for us like you just did.
Yeah, I think the two teams, obviously Arsenal still set up in their 4-3-3, Palace in a 4-2-3-1. But I thought the key to the game was the way Arsenal on the ball were a 3-2-5 in build-up, and Palace were a 4-4-2. So when we were trying to sort of play through them, I thought the issues we had against them defensively, although we had all the ball and we were sort of like in control of the game, while we were struggling to unlock them defensively, was for several reasons. I think the way that they set up Palace, Arsenal had obviously move into that 3-2-5 shape, which we talk about. So you've got you had the three defenders across the back there last night, which was White, Saliba and Tomiyasu. Partey was inverting next to Rice, and then we got our 5 lanes up high. Palace out of possession are a 4-4-2. Edward and Eze are the 2 who press the front. Then they've got their 4 midfield, a box midfield, you could argue, and then they've got 4 defenders. What they were doing really well to stifle Arsenal last night was, I thought the 2 wide players, Ayew and Sloop, were getting back to create 2v1s against Martinelli and Saka. So Sloop was obviously on, I believe, was on Mitchell's side, and Ward was being protected by on that side. So they had 2v1s there. And then in central midfield, I thought Lamar was tracking the runs of Odegaard, and Decore was tracking the runs of Havertz. So in that sort of shape, what Arsenal need, you've got the 5 lanes. They're defending in a 6 off the ball, all right? Where this Arsenal shape, when you're inverting from the right and it hasn't got Zinchenko in it, it struggles. You haven't got, Tomiyasu can't bring to the party up high on the left-hand side what White can do if Zinchenko is playing left back and Partey is playing in midfield, and then you've got White going high. So you haven't got that outlet up high, that attacking player who can support the wide players. So as a result of that, I think Palace were very comfortable shutting Arsenal down in wide areas. They had their 2v1s in the wide areas with their wide players working back to stifle out Saka and Martinelli. They had their midfield tracking the runs of Havertz and Odegaard. So what it needed, I thought, in this game from Arsenal, where we had started to have a bit of joy in that first half, James, it needed something from Declan Rice. And Declan Rice stepped up to the party, I thought, last night. He's not just in his defensive awareness and positional sense as a number 6. He was the player driving passes through the lines and switching diagonals out wide and getting space away from Edward and Eze to create those sort of situations for Arsenal offensively. I think Rice was the one who combined with Odegaard to create the chance for Eddie Nketiah, and our other chance obviously came where we boxed them in on the left-hand side and we pressed really well to create the chance for Eddie. But I thought it was Rice was more, not only defensively, positionally sound, he was the creator for us in this game. I
agree. I thought he was fantastic, and you're right about the shape. You know, we touched on it last week, whether this was, you know, the move towards a Johan Cruyff kind of diamond. We didn't really see that so much. It did feel like more the box midfield, and it's really a case of just pivoting that midfield box to, you know, make it look more of a diamond shape. They did stay a lot more structured. Rice did sit deep. Sometimes he came to the back 3 to try pick up the ball. Do you think, though, that, you know, with Partey and Tomiyasu as the fullbacks having to do the one inverting, one supporting, it's costing Martinelli and Saka? Because I don't think either of them had their best game. Not bad, but it didn't feel like Saka had that kind of overwhelming support White would offer. It didn't feel like Martinelli had the connections and combinations and cohesiveness that he had when it was Xhaka there, when it was Zinchenko. And look, fine, Havertz is new, Rice is new, Tomiyasu's been injured a lot, so that's to be expected to a degree. But I just feel like the wingers are suffering the most. You know, we talk about creativity. Arsenal were able to actually fashion some chances, but it feels like Martinelli and Saka are suffering a little bit for this new kind of approach. Yeah, 100% agree with that. Absolutely spot on. I think it's costing us in fluency and in connections. On the right hand side, although we still maintain that right hand structure with Partey, Odegaard and Saka, what we've lost is Ben White coming up high. Although he did a few times last week when we were at home, but obviously when you're away from home, it's a different dynamic. He can't do that so much. So we've lost that connection up high. When Saka is faced with 2v1, he can offer an outlet
on that right hand side to go on the outside, which takes away a player or creates space for Saka to come inside. So we've lost that connection. And on the left hand side, where it affects us is Tomiyasu's skill set is not the same as Zinchenko when he goes high on that left hand side that enables Martinelli to come inside. Tomiyasu is an out and out defender. He's not somebody who can go high and create that width that you need that allows Martinelli to come inside. So I think, in answer to your question, both wide players are definitely suffering in this system.
Yeah, I agree. I do think, though, the system is designed for total football. And you mentioned the Nketiah chances, and I've not recreated it, but I have put the players all in their positions. And I just think, when we mentioned total football, and Javi, who everyone saw, we had him on the show last week, a little clip from his fan cam, and he made some great points about Johan Cruyff. And the total football idea is essentially everyone can slot in wherever, and if there is a tweak to someone's position, that's fine because someone else will slot in. So if William Saliba charges all the way up the pitch to press, it's okay if Thomas Partey slots into the back four. In theory, everything should operate and move the way it has been. Now, what I've got here is Eddie Nketiah, and that kind of, I've just got the arrows illustrating the movement of the ball, and then the dotted arrow illustrating the move of Eddie Nketiah. The ball goes from Odegaard to Rice, and then it goes in to Nketiah, who gets that chance. He tries to lift over Johnson. He should do better. But what I like is, in this situation where Partey is the inverting fullback and drifting to the right, it's actually Rice, who I'm going to highlight here, who takes it upon himself to come into that space and receive the ball from Odegaard and then play into Eddie Nketiah. Eddie Nketiah here is actually hitting more of a sort of right channel space that you used to seeing Bukayo Saka take on. You then got Martinelli, who's kind of more central, almost where you see Liverpool forwards in that kind of narrow front three, trying to get nearer to goal. And then you've got Kai Havertz wide left and Tomiyasu high and wide as well, where he's actually normally been a bit more inverted, and Havertz would normally be the attacking eight, but actually he's wider. The players are constantly moving, and a big part as to why I believe we were able to break down Palace to create that chance is because players were moving around and constantly asking different questions. So when Eddie Nketiah picks up this position here that we've just illustrated, let me just highlight it. Here he is, here in that little pocket. Doucouré doesn't know, is it my man? Because he's the striker, so it's Gay coming across. But Mitchell doesn't want to tuck him because Bukayo Saka's holding the width, and Lerma's pulled all the way across, which brings Doucouré all the way across. And why is he pulled across? Because Martin Odegaard is high and wide over there. And I just think the constant movement and picking up of different positions is what makes it so difficult for defenders and defensive players to know whether to track, to come along, to hold their space. And Arsenal, through sheer movement and alternating and rotating of positions, fashioned that chance through that tactics, intelligence, and understanding via the principles of total football how to cover for each other and make sure that the principles are there, but we're still remaining fluid as well.
Yeah, we did create that one really excellent chance in the way that you've described, and on another day Eddie should bury that. I mean, that's his bread and butter. It's great movement by Eddie, and he gets himself in the position and he dinks it over the bar, which is disappointing. I thought he was really lively last night, Eddie.
I really liked his performance.
And you've got to remember, it was a quick, not only the quick thinking from the free kick that caught Palace out, but he was very sharp to get on the end of that pass, and he was the one who won the penalty. But I thought that, in answer to your question, yes, there is that fluidity in the movement that the team is famous for. But I've noticed at the start of this season that it hasn't been quite happening so much in games. It's still there, and you could argue that the team has changed. There's different personnel, different connections. You could argue that certain players are feeling their way into the team still, but I don't see so far in the first two games, and albeit Palace is a very difficult ground to go to and get a result, I haven't seen that sort of like connections and fluidity so much this season yet. It's early doors, of course, and we can't nitpick when you've won your first two games. So, but in answer to your question, Arsenal have over the year fashioned a team that is very fluid in movement, and it's a big part of why they've been so successful over the last year.
They just need to add that explosiveness again, that kind of doing it second nature. At the moment it feels a little too calculated, but they're getting there. Let's talk about the fact that things did start to go wrong, and by looking at 10-man Arsenal. So here's the 11 I've got on the pitch at the start of the game, and of course Tomiyasu, I'm not going to go into it because I've ranted about it 4 times already on AFTV. Tomiyasu gets what I think is a really unjustified red card. So off he goes.
Yeah, can I just say one thing before you go on? That the guy who actually went down and Ayew shouldn't have been on the pitch.
Yeah, I know.
A few minutes before, he did exactly the same to Bukayo Saka. He was on a yellow. So Coote, who's very much a home referee, I have to say, should have sent off Ayew technically. If you know, so Ayew stays on the pitch, and that's the irony of it, isn't it, James? The fact that he's still on the pitch, and that's a very light tug on his shirt. It is technically a foul. And he goes over and gets him sent off. But let's make no mistake, Ayew was very lucky to still be on the pitch.
I agree. So you see Tomiyasu coming off here, and you're left with a 3-3-3. Now, of course, Arteta's got to do something about it. Now, we've seen this before. I remember specifically where it worked, for example, away at Anfield, go down to 10 men, a Granit Xhaka red card. He went for a 5-3-1 system. So how does he achieve that in this game? Well, Gabriel comes on and Martinelli comes off, and I don't think people were too happy about that at first. I think people were thinking, Martinelli, surely he's the one that offers you something going the other way. But I don't think Martinelli was at it. I think he just looked at who's in form in this game, and I don't mind that. So Martinelli comes off, and you're left with a 4-3-2. He then shifts that back four across, and Bukayo Saka comes out to left wing back, and I thought he did very well there. He had a lot of defending to do, and he tried to drive us up the pitch. He won fouls. He did well. That leaves Havertz and Odegaard very tight next to Rice, and Nketiah is in there too. Now, actually, Arsenal was still very defensive and really struggled to. I know you're down to 10 men, but really struggled to get any control over that. They were defending their penalty box brilliantly.
Struggling to get out, weren't we?
Really, really were. So he then makes another few changes where we see Kivior, Zinchenko, Jorginho coming on, and I believe it's Nketiah, Odegaard and Saka coming off, three attacking players. And he then readdresses the balance. He shifts the whole back four across. White goes to right back. Saliba, Gabriel, Kivior's your back three there. Zinchenko at left back. Partey, Jorginho, Rice as the midfield three, and then Kai Havertz leading the line. So Rice has gone from a 6, a 8 with an inverted fullback playing as a 6, to then playing as an 8, having to get forward to support Havertz. Havertz has played an 8, now gone up front. Everyone's having to readdress how they're setting up, but they really took to this system really, really well. And you had a really interesting bit of insight on how the Arsenal players that came on actually had a real impact.
Well, first of all, when he went to the back five, we went 5-3-1. But the one thing we lacked, two things. One, we couldn't play out, and also we lost control. Palace were now starting to pin balls into our final third. They were starting to sort of like create situations where if one thing fell their way, they could potentially equalise. So what he wanted was, he wanted more control. Jorginho come on and offered that. He completed 10 out of 10 of his passes. The other three subs he brought on, Kivior, Zinchenko and Gabriel, all completed 100% of their passes, which gave the team not only defensive stability in defending those aerial bombardments that they were throwing into the box, but also gave us control when we had the ball. There was a 2-3 minute period as we went towards the 7 minutes added on where we kept the ball for 2 or 3 minutes. We were knocking it around, which we weren't doing the previous 10. So last week we criticised Mikel Arteta for leaving it too late for his subs and maybe getting the subs wrong maybe. This week he got the subs absolutely right twice. First of all, he made the right change, took Martinelli off, he was struggling, and strengthened the back line, brought on Gabriel, who we were surprised wasn't playing from the start, and that's another story, of course. But then he made the right subs across the back line, and also Jorginho, his influence, and he's brilliant at this, Jorginho, the way he just keeps the ball. And all of a sudden the team started knocking it around again, and then all of a sudden Palace lost a little bit of heart and we took the pressure off. It was really good the way we did that.
I agree. I loved it. When you sent me that stat of the 4 substitutes we've got here, Jorginho, Zinchenko, Kivior, Gabriel, all completing 100% of their passes, I thought, I mean, talk about doing what the boss asks. And you come on and keep possession and keep us moving. And I love that. You know, it's such a great stat. They all came in and they kept the ball when they had it. And that did give Arsenal a little bit of respite and allowed them to settle in and actually get through what could have been a really nervy last 15-20 really well. And I wanted to back that up. The minute you said that, I thought, I need to look a little bit deeper here. And I've got these numbers just to sort of support the impact the subs had. From minute 67 to 78, Arsenal completed 9 passes, none of them in the attacking third. Only had 1 take on and 0 shots. Now in the next 79, from minute 79 to 97, sure it's a longer span, but look at this massive jump from 9 passes before to 53 passes in those, just under 20 minutes. Attacking third passes from 0 to 16, take-ons from 1 to 5, and still no shot, but far more accomplished in possession. They had the absolute desired impact. By the way, why am I going for those minutes? Minute 79 was when Jorginho came on. We then saw Kivior and then we saw Zinchenko. Arteta managed his use of subs perfectly.
We defended
Nailed
really
it.
well. Just had the one slightly dicey moment where Eze went through, a tangle of legs. Palace thought that they should have had a penalty. They appealed for a penalty. That was the one dicey moment. I didn't think it was a pen, but obviously it wasn't given.
Yeah,
but
very
apart
soft.
from that, I thought that the whole back line and Ramsdale defended as a unit. And I loved that solidarity at the end there where they were all high-fiving. They really enjoyed that. I mean, it's a proper performance when, you know, you love to win and score lots of goals, but when the whole team have contributed, you know, you've got your goal, you've gone away from home, difficult place, you've won, and the defence have kept a clean sheet and they've worked for it. Every player come off that pitch on Monday night really pleased, I'm sure, with their performance.
I think it's a big morale booster.
Yeah.
One of the players that's at the very heart of that, let's bring his numbers up, Declan Rice, 90% pass accuracy, 4 ball recoveries, 2 ground duels, 1, 3 long balls. That's only the half of it. There's so many other stats. We could have showed you a heat map, we could have showed you everything else from chances created. He was just absolutely everywhere. Best performance in an Arsenal shirt. Yes, we've only seen 2.5 competitive ones. I'm counting the Community Shield. But he did everything. And I said it in my fan cam, and I don't know if I'll be able to sort of reword it better, but when he had to be an 8 and he had to create in the final third, he did. When he had to drop back, he did. When he had to just cover around and be a ground and be a box-to-box, he did. I loved him. I loved his interview after the game. I loved his attitude throughout the match. He relished it.
Almost like the perfect number 6 performance. I know he was playing at drifting up high at times, but I thought that
he was a 6 in this, more than against Forest.
Yeah, more than a 6. I think he was positionally very disciplined. I think he was a monster in the duels. He was demanding the ball, he was keeping the ball, he was spraying those diagonals, loved his diagonal passing to get the wide players on the ball, and he was breaking lines with his passes. And then he was getting forward, he created that big chance for Eddie in combination play with Martin Odegaard. This was a superb performance. He had power, physicality and presence. That's what I loved about it, and he loved that performance, didn't he? Yeah,
he absolutely did. William Saliba I thought was brilliant as well. We touched on Eddie Nketiah's performance. I think Nketiah was 3rd to Rice and Saliba. For me, they were the 2 best. Saliba's stats we've got here: 8 clearances, 3 ball recoveries, 4 long balls and 2 interceptions. And we just had to get a picture of that tackle on Ayew because he actually makes the error, but the incredible recovery pace, brilliantly timed tackle. It's not even a block. It's not just I want to throw my body and get in the way of it. That's a real, I'm coming in to win that ball, clean it out, and well done to William Saliba.
Are you worried at the moment he's playing left-sided centre-back, or do you think he's comfortable there?
Not after yesterday's performance. I thought against Forest, while he showed brilliance on the ball, I thought off the ball he did look a little, but I don't know why. Maybe it was just in my head. I wasn't used to seeing him in those areas of the pitch. But against Palace, I thought
I just love that trademark last-ditch tackle. I know he gave the ball away, but the way he ate up the ground, got across, and took it out, that was a proper defender.
He's done that before against Kylian Mbappe, and now he's going to level up and done it against Jordan Ayew, so fair play to him. Let's go through the roundup stats, Graham. Sorry, John. Sorry.
Right, closing stats for this week then, James. Bukayo Saka made his 82nd consecutive Premier League start, equaling the club record of Paul Merson last night, which was well talked about and documented.
A fantastic record, right?
Only at Villa Park, 14, have Arsenal won more away games than they now have at Selhurst Park. Last night was their 13th away victory at Crystal Palace.
Doesn't feel that way, but
Arsenal kept their 11th clean sheet in the Premier League since the beginning of last season. Next best is Man City at 7. So back to defensive resilience last night, I thought.
Fantastic.
Eddie Nketiah had 7 touches in the Palace box in the first half, more than the entire Palace team. That was 6. Since the start of last season, only Bukayo Saka, 26, has been more involved in goals and assists than Martin Odegaard, who now has 23. Tomiyasu's red card was his first an Arsenal player has received in the Premier League since Rob Holding was sent off at Spurs in the 2021-22 season, 41 games and 467 days ago.
They've addressed that, well done. And this wasn't their fault either.
No, and for his first yellow card for time wasting, Tomiyasu only took 8 seconds to throw the ball in after coming up to take the ball off Havertz, who had held onto the ball for 15 seconds, so slightly unlucky. You could argue it was a yellow for the team. Yeah, and finally, ending on that positive note, Arsenal kept up their impressive record against London rivals, winning their 11th game in the last 13. That's 11 wins and 12 draws. Can you name, James, the 2 teams who they've drawn against in that run of 13. One at home and one away last season.
West Ham.
Yes, away 2-2. At home, controversial goal. Brentford. Spot on.
Wow, there we go. I didn't read them before you all start saying that in the comments. Big thanks to Graham as always for joining us. Really enjoyed that breakdown. Hope you guys did too. As I said, Arsenal start with 2 wins out of 2. They had to do something differently in this game. We saw Arteta going with the what we called experimental approach last week. Thought Arsenal looked very accomplished, still defended brilliantly actually in a lot of ways, not just when we had 10 men and we had to dig deep, but I thought in transition Arsenal really tightened things up since pre-season, but they had to show something different as well. When we went down to 10 men, Arteta and the players found a way, whether it was through grit, tactics, whatever it is, they did it, and I'm loving this team and all the new additions. Everyone is playing a massive part. Of course, it's Fulham on the weekend, so we will be back on Monday to break down hopefully another win. Come on Arsenal, couple home games now, one of them against Man United coming up as well. Let's keep building momentum, and of course if you want to support Kai Havertz or any other players, go to the AFTV store, link is in the description below. Subscribe to AFTV, hit the like button, and as always a massive thank you. We do read all the comments, we genuinely do. You'll see us reply to a lot of them as well. Thank you to everyone who is contributing to the show, who is giving us your feedback. We really appreciate it. Subscribe to AFTV and we'll see you in a bit.